Think we're good. We've started recording, so welcome. I call this meeting to order. This is our celebration of service for September 8th, 2020. I'm your current president, Ashley Sullivan. Thank you for being here. Michael, please show the flag graphic for 15 seconds of respectful silence. We ask that you remain on mute and take this time to personally reflect. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Sarah Laughlin to offer our reflection, but I'm not sure she's with us yet. Sarah?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. We're now at 25 weeks. That's almost half a year into the pandemic shutdown. And today is the first day of school, limping back to school in Monroe County with great hopes that we can sustain that. So I was thinking back to March 12th, the day we made the decision to close Teachers Warehouse. When the governor and the mayor announced the stay-at-home orders, I think I naively imagined that it would be a couple of weeks and then we'd be back to normal. One day in early May, I heard from Sue Cull that she was going to TW to inventory and stow the donations that had been sitting there since March. I decided to go in too, partly to help, but mostly to see her. When I got there, 4 other volunteers were already there. Oh, the joy of that, of seeing my friends. The phone was ringing off the hook with people who were cleaning out their garages and their offices and their attics and their children's rooms and wondered if TW was open for donations. By the end of the afternoon, we'd figured out how we could open the garage door without leaving the lobby and how donors could put their items on shelves and we'd let them sit for 5 days. And we had drafted a press release and we were so excited to be planning something together. And then I came home and told my son, and he said, "Mom, what does your mayor say about that?" And I looked up the order and realized we would be asking people to come out when they were supposed to be sheltering at home. So we had to pause. 2 weeks later, though, the order was lifted, and in early June, we did open for donations only. Then we began to realize we wouldn't be able to handle our supply drive in August in the same way. You remember the supply drive. How would we replace that $12,000 in supplies we'd be foregoing? Gabe Coleman had a birthday coming up, and he did an online birthday appeal, raising $2,000, which was matched with $1,000 from Bloomington North Rotary. We set up an online gift list at Amazon, and pretty soon every day brought Amazon boxes to TW. And Ron Barnes organized donation boxes at Staples and at Kroger's, which also yielded trunkfuls of supplies. He gave a powerful reflection at our club that caused many of you to make pledges. And Smithville, even though half of its employees were working from home, held their annual supply drive on our behalf. As of today, I don't know the total value of supplies and cash our efforts yielded. But what I do know is that taking action was positive in so many ways. It gave us something to do on behalf of others, something bigger than ourselves. It allowed us to work with the high-performing teams, our friends at Teachers Warehouse and Rotary and elsewhere in the community. And it gave us a sense of controlling our own future in a time when the rest of the world seemed to be spinning out of control. So I hope your pandemic has been productive too, and has given you a chance to put service above self.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We have quite a few guests today, so I would like to welcome Jim Bright to give us a warm welcome.
Hey, a big welcome to all of our esteemed guests, Ashley. We have more than 30 guests with us today from across the Bloomington community. across the state of Indiana, and even from as far away as Hawaii. Aloha, Rotarian Ray Taylor, and to Owen Johnson's daughter, hello, Eva Johnson, joining us from Moscow, Russia. So you've come a long way to join us here on Zoom. We can't recognize all of you today as we normally do, with so many of you joining us and with the need to give our speakers enough time, our speaker enough time. But we are glad you're with us, and we hope you'll come back for other fascinating programs. So back to you, President Ashley.
Thank you, Jim. And as Sally said earlier, if anyone's interested in learning more about Rotary, we meet here every Tuesday at noon. You can ask any of us, anyone who extended an invitation to today's meeting, we'll be glad to share Rotary with you. A little bit of housekeeping. Thanks to our producers, Michael Shermis, Sally Gaskell, Natalie Blaze, for welcoming everyone here today. And our roundabout reporter for this week is Glenda Murray. Some birthdays to celebrate: Kate Cruikshank, September 9th. Elon Barker, September 12th. Betsy Trotsky is September 12th. And Wendell St. John, September 12th. Happy birthday to everyone there. Membership anniversaries, we have Byron Bangert, September 14th. 21 years in our club, 14 years previously, for a total of 35 years. Congratulations, Byron. Thank you for being a part of our club. We only have a few announcements today. The League of Women Voters, joined by the Monroe County, the NAACP, the UU Racial Justice Task Force, the Monroe County Women's Commission, and the Trinity Episcopal Church, will host 2 films on Zoom that offer deeper insights into the issue of voter suppression. Each event will begin with a film, followed by Q&A session about voting. Rotarian Hal Turner, chair of the Monroe County Election Board, will be part of the Q&A at both events, along with Monroe County Clerk Nicole Brown. The films are free, but you must register in advance, and the link will be in the roundabout. The films and the screening dates are Suppressed, The Fight to Vote, Tuesday, September 15th, and Uncivil War, U.S. Elections Under Siege, Tuesday, September 22nd. This information will be listed in the roundabout, so check that out. And now I'd like to introduce Phil Eskew for an announcement about our Rotary Toast. Phil?
Rotary Toast this year is going to honor Bob Hamill. My father became superintendent of schools in Huntington in 1959. So I've known Bob Hamill since 1959. He came to Bloomington in 1966 after spending some time in Kokomo and then with the Indianapolis News. He has covered everything from high school to IU to Olympics to NCAA, many personal stories about athletes and also many coaches. But he's just an icon here in the Bloomington community. I have many of his columns saved simply because they were so wonderfully written. I would encourage everyone to encourage their friends to sign up for the Rotary Toast on November the 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil. And can we get a reminder of what that website is to get your tickets?
RotaryToast.com. RotaryToast.com.
Thanks. And also there's a $25 viewing option for that. Just a reminder, if anyone doesn't want to have a fabulous charcuterie board with their event, they can get a ticket for $25 to see it, and I wouldn't miss it. Okay. Volunteering Service Spotlight. We are offering lots of opportunities every week for you to check out volunteering opportunities in the community. We have 4 standing opportunities right now. All the info will be in the roundabout. Helping Hands, Friends of Lake Monroe. I want to highlight Friends of Lake Monroe because their water sampling blitz still needs some volunteers, and that's on the 18th of this month. Wheeler Mission has lots of opportunities, 3 meals a day served, and they need some virtual help with their newsletter and video production, so check them out. Email Josie. And Teachers Warehouse always needs help from Monday through Friday. Volunteers at teacherswarehouse.org. All of this will be in our trusty newsletter. Thank you, Glenda, for reporting all of those opportunities. And now we have a few minutes for Happy Dollars, and we'll link the PayPal link that you can donate in the chat. Anyone like to start?
Ashley, I'll jump in. I have 10 happy dollars. I'm delighted to welcome two colleagues, former colleagues from the IU Luddy School, Kelsey Kegg and Ken Bykoff. And some of you may remember that Ken Bykoff spoke to our club a couple of years ago about IU athletics. That talk led to a book deal with the IU Press, and his book just came out last month. It's called Who's Your Beginnings? The Birth of Indiana University Athletics. It's a great read and would make a wonderful stocking stuffer. So welcome to Kelsey Kegg and Ken Bykoff.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else have anything to share? I can't see all the screens at once, so speak up.
I'll throw in a few happy dollars for Aaron Davis's birthday yesterday, and we survived our round of visits and parties, and it was a ball. So happy birthday, Aaron.
Happy birthday. Anyone else? Okay, well, if we don't have any further happy dollars to share, then we'll get a really early start here. I would like to remind everyone that we will have a Q&A moderated by Owen Johnson following Scott's presentation. So please enter your questions in the chat and Owen will get to your questions in order. We might have a lot of questions, so we want to keep it flowing that way. And without further ado, Owen Johnson to introduce our speaker.
Thanks, President Ashley. Our speaker today is like many people in Bloomington. He came to IU as a student and never left. But he's also like only a few people in Bloomington. He has an NCAA championship ring. Scott Dolson grew up in Michigan City, not too far from LaPorte, where Ernie Pyle got his professional start. Dolson's best friend in high school was Delray Brooks, who came to IU to play basketball for Bob Knight. Scott came along as manager and worked for Knight for 4 years. In his senior year, IU won its 5th and so far last national championship, which is how he got his championship ring. A year after graduation, he joined the varsity club, eventually becoming its head. He spent the last 11 years as deputy director of athletics at IU and chief operating officer. He served under Fred Glass, and in July, he succeeded Glass to become IU's athletic director. Please give a warm Rotary welcome to Scott Dolson.
Thanks, Owen. Can everybody hear me okay? We good? Great. Thank you so much, Owen, for inviting me, and it's great to see so many familiar faces. I could take a long time singling out a lot of people, but I did want to say a special hello to Phil Eskew, who's such a strong supporter of IU athletics as a longtime trustee. It's great to see Phil. And I also wanted to say hello to Ken Beckley, one of my mentors, and just thinking so much about you, Ken. It's great to see you on the call. It means a lot to see you. So with that, what I thought I'd do today, and thanks for the introduction, Owen, was really take some time just to walk through, Owen talked about my background a little bit, and I'll just give you a little bit of insight into that. And then what I thought would be helpful and maybe informative is to talk about what does an athletic director do at IU? What does my job entail now that I've taken it over, and hit on a few areas of that, and then leave enough time to really answer some questions that you have specific to what's going on in athletics, and maybe talk about some of the in more detail in some of the areas I touch on. From my background standpoint, as Owen said, came to school here in 1984, never left, and very, very fortunate to have not had an opportunity to be involved with athletics at that time as a basketball manager for Coach Knight. And I didn't realize it at the time, I really didn't, but as I was preparing to interview for the athletic director job, I really went through my background in really, I feel like that I've prepared for this job really since I got here. in the opportunity to be a basketball manager, believe it or not, there are things right now that I'm doing as athletic director that really, I fall back to those days. My philosophies around athletics and what I believe in really was entrenched at that point in my career. And then following that up, working for Tim Knight and doing some things for him in the community, and then working for the varsity club and the opportunity there. And then subsequently working for Fred Glass. I've just been really, really fortunate that all those experiences really helped provide a foundation for me to help lead to where I am today. So I'm extremely grateful for that. In terms of, again, if I'm you, one of the things that would be interesting for me is what does the IU athletic director do? What is the job? You can kind of guess and you think some things, but I've kind of summarized it into 5 different categories, and I'm going to talk about 3 of them in detail. But they're really, to me, and as I thought about interviewing for this position, to be honest with you, these are the things that I felt were most critical for the athletic director to be successful here. The first thing is to really establish and to make certain that we have strong priorities and a vision for the department. And that obviously is critical in any business, but you've got to know where you're going, who you are and where you're going. The second thing is that you've got to make certain that, and the athletic director has to make certain they're leading the efforts and making certain we have the financial resources to maintain a department of this size and to make certain that we can be successful. We've got to ensure that we can have the revenue generation, the fiscal management to handle that. The third thing is, and this is something you might think about, particularly as we're involved in the crisis that we're involved in right now, unfortunately, but crisis management in making certain that you handle risk management is so critical, particularly for a Big Ten Power 5 athletic director. That is really, really critical. And obviously we're in one of the worst crises that we can imagine in modern days right now. So that's critical, that area. Then obviously maintaining and recruiting a highly effective staff of coaches. We've got over 315 employees, and certainly an athletic director has to ensure that they can manage and select and build a team to have a robust athletic program. And then finally, which is kind of says it all, is we've got to provide to make certain that we have a support system for a world-class student athlete experience in every way, shape, or form. And so those to me are the things that, as I looked at the opportunity to interview for this job, those are the things to me that I really wanted to build on. And subsequently, as I take the first 3 of those and just give you a little more detail in those, one of the things that was really important is that one of the things that I give Fred Glass, among many things, give him so much credit for, and I certainly would not have had this opportunity if I hadn't had the last 11 years really learning and working under him. But what he did was really reestablish our foundation, our priorities. And those priorities he established when he first arrived. I worked really closely with him, was able to work by his side. I kind of described what Fred enabled me to do, is he enabled me to kind of have a co-pilot seat next to him as he flew the plane of IU athletics. And once in a while, he let me even take the controls of the plane. I never actually went solo, but he really gave me an incredible opportunity. And then when it was time, when he moved on, I felt really prepared to slide over to the captain's seat, I guess you could say. And one of the things that in establishing those priorities, and he enunciated them so well, we play by the rules. It's a top priority. We make certain that we're well in mind, body, and spirit. And that really means that we believe in the holistic development of our student athletes. And the development of the Excellence Academy has been a groundbreaking initiative that we've put forward that has really helped to kind of fulfill that promise of we want it all, not just athletically and academically. We want the whole experience. We certainly want to achieve academically, and obviously that's why we're here. And our record on that lately, particularly under Fred, has been stellar. In fact, this past spring, which was a tough semester with the pandemic hitting, was our best spring GPA that we've had in our history, which is a great credit to our student athletes. We obviously want to excel athletically, and that, if we're going to play, we want to play to win. And again, looking back at my experience with basketball, when I was a participant as a manager, there's nothing like winning, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. So obviously we want to compete at the highest level, and then finally we want to be integrated with our university. We understand we're part of something bigger than ourselves, and it's not all about athletics. and what can we do to help enhance and make certain that the university itself is proud of their athletic department, and the athletic department can really build on the initiatives that the university has, and that's really, really critical for us. So having said those priorities that are really our foundation, I hope those priorities never change. I hope that's what, and actually they were what those were the priorities that were here when I arrived here on campus. But unfortunately, we've gone through a time when maybe those priorities drifted a little bit, because the priorities were really built on the coaches that really established those priorities. And when those coaches were no longer here, we drifted a little. And that's, as I said, I give Fred so much credit for reestablishing those and codifying them. So the question then for me is, and for us in athletics is, how do we build on those? What's the vision? What's next? What are some of the initiatives so that we can take that foundation and build on it? And I'll touch on some things that I think are really important as we, again, look ahead. One of the key things is and many of you probably read this and heard about it, is really the modernization of college athletics. There's a lot of change happening out there. One of the things you hear about is pay for play, name, image, and likeness, and what's the next thing to happen there. And the reality is that college athletics are changing. It's changing quickly. And in fact, pretty much at the beginning of 2021, so not too far from here, in January of 21, the NCAA is going to be voting and most likely putting into motion the ability for student athletes to benefit on their name, image, and likeness, which is a groundbreaking change. Well, from our perspective, in my position, we need to make certain we're on the forefront of that. That's coming. We know it. How can we make certain we're a leader in that area? And we've got several initiatives that we've already kicked off. We formed a partnership with a company called Open Doors, which is a company that's groundbreaking in terms of helping student athletes or athletes in general determine what is their value in terms of name, image, and likeness, and how can we evaluate for our current or future student athletes how they can maximize that value. The second thing we've done is that we formed a name, image, and likeness task force, where we really, back to what I said earlier about integrating with the university, we took our very best recruiters in the department, our coaches that do a lot of recruiting, and our staff that work with our student athletes a lot. We've partnered with the Kelley School of Business and Dr. Ash Soni, and also with our media school. And what we've done there is, with Dr. Galen Clavio, is formed a real group that we can meet internally and really determine how can we make certain that our student athletes can maximize this opportunity from a name, image, and likeness standpoint. And what our overall goal is again, we want to make certain that as that new initiative comes on the forefront in college athletics, we don't want to be on the behind of that. We want to be on the front of it. And so I'm really excited about that initiative. It's something you'll hear more about in the future, but that is a critical thing. The thing that's got to happen nationally, was they're trying to put that initiative in place, is that the NCAA wants to make certain that we're still an education-based model, which is critical, which is important to all of us, that we're not a pay for play. It's not an employment opportunity. It is an education-based model, that there's fair competition across the country. The name, image, and likeness legislation can't change the fair competition area of things. And we have to make certain that we still adhere to, which we're very, very strong in terms of gender equity and all the advances we made in gender equity. Those have to be the backdrop of name, image, and likeness. But having said that, at IU, we've always been on the cutting edge of what's next. And to me and to us, that's really, really important. So more to come on that, but that's one of the things I wanted to highlight for you as part of what's the vision, what's next. The second thing is that we, as many of you know, have really made great strides in our women's programs in multiple ways. Our facilities for our women's programs have really improved tremendously. Andy Moore Field is a great example of that with softball. And I believe, and again, I give Fred so much credit for that, he really has taken our women's programs up several notches. So for me, as I inherited this position from Fred, I was able to take or have the opportunity to have this position. I felt like, what's the next thing we can do? How can we take our women's programs to another level across the board? And so we formed, which hasn't been publicly released yet, but we're working on that right now. But we're going to have a women's excellence initiative I'm really, really excited about, that is going to be a combination of a philanthropic effort an alumni effort, and a real commitment to our women's programs across the board. And I'm just teasing with that a little bit because I don't want to spoil all the details, but I'm really excited. And I think whether it's women's basketball, whether it's volleyball, whether it's softball, and you across the board, how much excitement has women's basketball created in the past few years? I think we can take our programs to the next level just by making this commitment. And so, again, I'm teasing with that a little bit, but I'm really excited about our Women's Excellence Initiative, which is coming. The next initiative, which, again, I want to touch on with you, is one of the things that really hit me when I obtained this opportunity was how can I, as athletic director, and then us as administrators, really help our coaches win? What does an athletic director, what can an athletic director do to help in other than hire great coaches, which is important. But I've always felt like, in addition to just handing the keys over to a program, to a coach, you've got to provide that support. You've got to ensure that there's a partnership there. And one of the things that the new initiative that we'll be unveiling as well, that again, I'll give you a little snippet of it, but it's really important that our programs, our coaches develop master plans for their programs. It's not like any other business, but it's developing what is the master plan for each sport. And that master plan really will, for me, back to what I said to you earlier about when I was a basketball manager, is I looked at our programs that have had consistent winning and really consistent success across the board. And you can look back to the basketball program under Coach Knight, the soccer program under Coach Yeagley. You look at Sam Bell and track. To me, one of the consistent things that I realized was that there was a real strong master plan with a consistent philosophy as it relates to three areas. That's recruiting, that's student athlete development from an athletic standpoint, and then what the winning strategy was. And when you look at successful programs, that winning master plan is really, really important to be consistent with that. And I think if you don't have a consistent plan, it's hard to win consistently. So I'm really looking forward to working with our coaches in helping them as they develop those master plans. And it helps me in my position and also our administrators to make certain that we are evaluating the programs and providing the resources to make certain that they have what they need and they're following their master plans. They may change from time to time, but it's important that we have a real vision for each program. And that's something that I'm really, really excited about, that I think can help, as I said, what can help us become consistent and take our programs to the next level. And again, this is just a little teaser on that. A couple other areas that are really important that were really our new initiatives for us is recently formed an IU Athletics mental health task force to really look at our mental health support for our student athletes. And that is something that I can't underscore to you how vital that is to a healthy athletic program. We talk a lot about our sports medicine, and we've got a great tradition in sports medicine here. But again, from a mental health program standpoint, that's something that's really, really important. And I think you'll be reading more about that as we go forward, not only for the resources that we're going to provide our student athletes, but also so that our coaches, our staff, our trainers, our academic advisors that come into contact with our student athletes on a daily basis, they're trained in mental health support and what to look for and the telltale signs to see if there are any issues that we need to take care of. It. That's something I'm passionate about, that I think we can, again, take our program to the next level. And the final kind of next initiative that I'll highlight before I move to kind of the next topic is we formed an anti-hate, anti-racism coalition. It's in the department that I'm really, really excited about. The Big Ten has one as well. We formed our own here at IU within the athletic department. I'm really excited. We've put together a task force there, and some of the initiatives that we have that are coming out of the task force are really exciting and really optimistic. We're going to have everything from a racial inclusivity training to a voter initiative that we're really excited about. And we really put some new programming in the Excellence Academy and civic engagement, and just really excited about that. And from a department standpoint, what's really, really important to me and to us is that we're in it for the marathon. We're not in it for a 50-yard dash, and that's really important. So our commitment to anti-hate and anti-racism is something that we're going to be moving out on quickly now and have moved out on, but it's something that's important that there's consistency there. It's not just the latest hot subject, that it's something that we're committed to. So I'm excited about that initiative as well. The second thing I want to touch on that I think would be interesting for you to, as I said, as I went through the different areas that an athletic director, particularly here at IU, needs to focus on, what are those 5 things? The second thing that I think it's really important is as I mentioned, providing the resources, the financial resources to be viable, to be financially stable. And to me, that's critical. It's a critical part of my job and our jobs as administrators here. And, to give you a little background of where we are on that, and we've had a great history here. Again, a lot of credit to Fred Glass. In the last 11 years, we've been in the black financially. And even though we're one of the smallest budgets in the Big Ten, as it relates to overall gross revenue, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why that is. When you look at our size of our football stadium and in the Big Ten Conference, if there's one of the things that I've learned in a short time period, which I knew before, but it really is been more evident than ever, is what a football conference, Big Ten Conference is, and how much football drives the conference and how important it is. And so, again, being one of the smaller gross revenue producing departments in the Big Ten, it's incumbent on us that we've got to be really smart with our resources to be able to compete at the level that we do. And so, again, we've done, I think, a great job of that. But now, as a result of the pandemic, we're in a different situation, as are most other athletic departments in the Big Ten, for sure. And so what we've done, to give you a little insight into that, and as Fred and I transitioned, Fred, basically, I was named athletic director in March, took over officially July 1, and Fred and I went through a transition period, and he and I outlined together, leading up into this fiscal year, our budget for this fiscal year, knowing that the challenges were going to be extreme in terms of a financial situation. What we did initially is we carved out 10% of our overall budget in budget cuts, which was about $11.8 million. We had about $118 million budget looking at this fiscal year pre-pandemic. And what we did is we carved out immediately out of our operations $11.8 million. We also made certain that we were adhering to all the university guidelines in terms of the freezes and the not backfilling positions. In fact, there are currently 35 positions in the athletic department that haven't been backfilled, that we deemed that we only were going to backfill essential positions. Full-time coaching positions are essential positions, but there are 35 positions in the department that we haven't backfilled. So that was our initial plan to figure out how to mitigate the challenges with the pandemic and looking at our finances this year. And then the plan was to wait and see what happens with football and what's next. And then obviously that card was played for us. We were dealt a tough hand with that, with football being, and our fall sports being postponed. So therefore, we had to take another action. And that action we took 2 weeks ago. It was a tough day in the department. I guess a week and a half ago now, we had to apply some furloughs and actually that was due to the fact that we have several employees that, as a result of us not competing in the fall, we don't have full-time work for them at this point, and it was really a job-related furlough. With the added part of this is that we also felt that as a department, it was necessary to kind of share the pain around the department. So we actually applied a 2-week furlough across the entire department, in addition to those who were furloughed either at 50%, meaning they were going to be working every other week moving forward until things get back to where we're playing again, competing. And then there were other employees that were furloughed 100%. So those are never easy. That's a tough time. But I commend their department. They handled it the best that they possibly could. And again, it was really a combination of a work-based furlough and then we wanted to make certain that everyone in the department gave something back. And so it'll help us with our financial mitigation, but certainly won't fill the hole that's being created. The next thing with that related to finances is really 2 things. Is we've got to determine how big this impact will be this year. How big will the hole be in terms of the financial ramifications of the postponement of fall sports? And a lot of that's just going to be determined in the weeks ahead as it relates to what happens with football. Is football going to play a winter model or winter spring model? What will that do to our overall revenue? What will that do to TV revenue? What's going to happen with the men's basketball? So men's basketball and football drive the TV revenue in the Big Ten. Certainly we know from a ticket standpoint, it's going to be challenging just with the existing conditions of the pandemic. But ultimately, we've got to figure out for this fiscal year, how big of a hole will we have, and then figure out will there be further action needed to be taken. And that's still it's to be determined. And that's what we're currently working on every day to determine what other actions do we need to do to make certain that we can cover the hole that is being created this year. And then the second thing, as I said, is that we've got to make certain that we're financially strong in the years ahead. And so while we're worried about this fiscal year and the financial implications of it, at the same time, I think what's really, really important is that we've got to be financially strong and have a plan that we can be stable to do all the things that I mentioned earlier, to have a robust department that provides the opportunities for our student athletes in every way, shape, or form. So those will be the next things coming financially. But in terms of an athletic director, whether it was me or anyone else in this position, the financial part is huge. I can't underscore that enough, and providing those resources and generating the revenue to operate the program. And certainly with the pandemic, those challenges have become larger. The next thing that I think is important to talk through is again, the important thing that an athletic director, particularly here at IU, works on is crisis management, risk management. In pre-pandemic, and if Fred Glass were on this call, or Clarence Doniger, or any one of our former athletic directors, one of the biggest challenges is not unlike anyone else who's dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, is making certain that you handle crisis, you handle when things go wrong. And to be totally candid with you, that's one of the things that I learned just a great deal from Fred on, in terms of other things as well. But Fred really handled crisis, I think, tremendously. And one of the things that I think is critical in handling crisis is that to make certain that you understand that we're not on an island, that we work closely with the university. And that's one of the things that, back to we're integrated with the university when we're handling difficult situations. I think where you've seen other athletic departments drift and maybe not handle them so well is when maybe they tried to handle them on their own and became on an island in some respects. And that's something that we certainly won't do. And so those day-to-day compliance issues that come up, just crisis, there's so many things that happen that I remember talking through with Fred in my role as deputy AD under him, that there'd be so many weeks that we thought this week was going to be this, and it ended up being completely consumed by something that a lot of times people wouldn't even know, but it was because a crisis happened. Something came up behind the scenes that we had to handle, and you've got to handle those right, and that's really important. In addition, right now, we're thrust into the crisis that we're all dealing with. And so from our perspective, it's something that we just deal with now every single day. And for me, again, going through that transition with Fred from March until July and then post-July, one of the things that I've been very fortunate in is that the Big Ten athletic directors meet every day, every Monday through Friday, and then really in June and July, and really up until about a week ago, we met most weekends as well. And every day it's a 2-hour meeting from 8 to 10 in the morning. I had it this morning. And for me, that has been an incredible opportunity. I wish we didn't have to be honest with you. I hate that we have to meet, but that's the crisis we're in. And for me, most times, and I've said this before to other groups, it's really been interesting because most athletic directors in the Big Ten, you meet regularly. In normal times, you meet 4 times a year. And so for me, I've been in I think last time I counted, I've been in 110 athletic director meetings that have lasted 2 hours each. So I've got over 25 years worth of experience in athletic directors meetings in like 5 months, and which has been incredible in forging relationships. You'd be shocked how many times I've talked to Mike Babinski, the AD at Purdue. We've become great, fast friends, and the collaboration, the caring, the working together is pretty incredible. I think that's something that sets the Big Ten apart that many people don't know. But as we work through this crisis, I've been just extremely fortunate to establish strong relationships. I knew a lot of the athletic directors before because I've been involved for a long time, as many of you know, in the department, but not at this level, certainly. So in dealing with the crisis, the relationship with the ADs has been one silver lining, if you can find a silver lining in this. But what we're doing in dealing with the crisis, and most of you obviously read about the postponement of the fall sports. That was extremely challenging decision. Ultimately, that decision, how it works in the Big Ten Conference is the athletic directors work closely with the Big Ten commissioner on putting together plans and recommendations. But ultimately, those decisions are at what is called the COPC, which is the Committee of the Chancellors and Presidents of the Big Ten. And ultimately, the decision was laid out, and it was pretty well documented. But the decision on postponement of fall sports was really because the presidents and chancellors just really felt, and based on advice from the medical experts, there was just too much uncertainty right now to move forward. It felt like a postponement was necessary. And the uncertainty really was a combination of really three things. It was a combination of uncertainty with testing, inconsistencies with testing, access to testing. There was uncertainty as it relates to contact tracing, particularly as it relates to high contact sports. What to have consistency across the Big Ten? How do you define a close contact in a football practice if someone on the team does become infected with COVID? And then the other thing that was an uncertainty were really the cardiac residual effects of a student athlete who would be infected with COVID. You know, those uncertainties caused the real initiative to say let's postpone, let's take a step back until we have more clarity. So really the question is then what would change to get you hear a lot, there's a lot of activity on social media. What would change to get football going again, or get sports going again in general? What's going to happen with men's basketball? And the reality is that even in the time period since we've postponed, there has been significant progress, which is great news. Testing is improving daily. There are new tests now that are what are called rapid response they've always been around for the past few months, but the reliability of those and the access to those increasing quickly. And one of the thoughts is if we can acquire rapid response testing, the great thing is that you could test on a daily basis and basically then have a clean practice field for contact sports, whether it's men's basketball, women's basketball, soccer, football, that if you test before practice and those results come back in minutes, then you know in essence that everyone who's out there at that point we have a clean field and an ability to not worry about contact tracing in practice and in competition, which is a big thing. The second thing as it relates to the cardiac issues, and I give Dr. Larry Rink, who we're so fortunate to have him, he's on the cutting edge of really putting together the return to play protocols to make certain that the appropriate testing and diagnostics takes place so that we never put a student athlete out on the field or back into competition that isn't cleared from a cardiac standpoint. And there's been huge advancements in that already as well. So with all that being said, I'm optimistic that we can get playing again. It's not if, it's just when. And it's hopeful that it's sooner than later for multiple reasons. And the reality is, I think there are times people think, well, you want to play because of what I outlined from a financial standpoint. And I don't want to insult your intelligence by saying that that's not true. There certainly is some truth that it would help financially for sure. But I can tell you there's two things that, number one, the students want to play. The students really, really want to play, and that's important to them. But most importantly, more than anything is that if it's not okay medically by the medical experts, regardless of the financial implications, and this is something I'm proud to be here at IU and I'm proud to be in the Big Ten, that if it's not okay medically and the experts don't give us that green light, then we won't do it, regardless of what the financial implications are. And that's something I think all of you, I'm sure, are proud of as well. So we're excited to move forward with the progress on that. It'll be interesting to see in the weeks ahead what transpires in that area. So with that, the final thing I want to just touch on real quickly is, and then again open up for questions, is that for me, what does success look like right now for IU athletics? So it's something that's really important. I talk about with our senior administration a lot. With where we are today, how do we define success for ourselves? And I think for us, there's a few things that are really important. And the most important thing is that regardless of what happens, whether when we return to competition or not, or we're online classes or in-person classes, regardless, it's incumbent upon us, and it's extremely critical, and it's our top priority that we ensure that our student athletes are developing, regardless of the situation, and to the best of their ability from an academic standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, and personally. And we can't lose sight on the day-to-day challenges of social distancing and dealing with the pandemic and all the things we're doing, that we don't lose sight of what the main thing is, and that's what we're developing our student athletes. And we've got to keep that on the forefront. We've got to make certain, secondly, that we, as I said earlier, we're developing our financial plan to make certain we're stable in the future. And that's vital for many, many reasons. But again, that's huge. That's going to define our success. And then the last two things is that ultimately, when we do come back to competing, we want to have success. We want to win. We want to build on the tradition that we have, and we want to win Big Ten championships. Because again, as I grew up in a department, if you win at the Big Ten level, you can compete at the national level because the conference is that good. And then finally, we want to be a leader in what I talked about earlier, the modernization of college athletics. How can we be a leader? How can we have that vision to make certain that we're looking forward and that we don't get so caught up in the day and dealing with the crisis that we're not looking ahead? And to me, that's one of the things as a leader in the department, I need to make certain that as we're dealing with the day-to-day challenges, that we really still are looking around the corner, we're looking ahead, that we don't get caught off guard when those changes happen, and we're on the forefront of that. So with that, I kind of rambled and talked about a lot of different things. I wanted to cram in several things in a short time period, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that are in the chat.
Owen, you're muted. Thanks.
Ashley, I just wanted to say one thing real quick. This is John Berta. Scott Dolson is the perfect person to be heading up my alma mater's athletic department. He bleeds cream and crimson. He's been there forever. I just couldn't be more proud of the work. This is incredible what you guys are going through. Scott, at least from my perspective, we got your back, man. Keep going, and we're so proud of the work you're doing, buddy. Keep it up.
Hey, thanks, John. That means a lot. I appreciate that. And I can say the same thing about you and what you're doing with the hospital foundation. And just, I tell you that we're all in this together. And as a community, we're all going through, extreme challenges. But I can't thank you enough for your support, as well as everyone else. It means a lot.
Scott, one of the questions that has come up is, how have IU fans reacted to this? Has there been pushback, for instance, on the delay in the football season? What about donations, all those kinds of things?
Yeah, our fans have reacted tremendously. We really tried to make certain that we communicated the best we could, and we continue to. That's really a challenge for us. I mean, people still today are, what's going to happen with the Maui Classic? And we keep people on the edge of their seats. We don't know yet. We don't want to guess, or we don't want to. If you're not sure, you can't say, because if it goes the other way, then you're misleading. But our fans have been terrific. Our contributions came in actually strong at the end of last fiscal year. We knew we'd be down a little, but which we were, but it could have been a lot worse. So all that is really good. We want to make certain with our football tickets, and we're doing this with basketball tickets as well, season tickets, that we created a ticket assurance program that we'd certainly refund the money as soon as we knew. But we offered people that, as we did that with football, if you want to donate your money back or put it on an account, that you can have a credit towards your next purchase from the ticket office. And the majority have either given the money back or put their money towards the next purchase, which has been great. So all in all, people they miss it, which I'm so thankful for, because if you didn't miss it, that would be a bad thing. But the support we've had has been incredible, and people are so understanding. We're very, very fortunate.
How well do you get to know the athlete, individually? And a related question, how do you determine how they're doing as far as mental health is concerned?
Yeah, I've known, it's funny because the sport administrators, I was a sport administrator before I became athletic director for men's basketball. And so, although I oversaw the other sport administrators, I worked closely with men's basketball. I traveled with every football game. So I probably knew football in men's basketball, student athletes better than anyone, maybe women's basketball to some extent, just from time around them. But it's really, really important to me and the other sport administrators that we do get to know students as best we can. And we feel we're a great resource for them that are outside of the actual programs. And you'd be amazed, to me, one of the things that gets me excited coming to work, you'd be amazed at just the energy that our students have, and just they want to get to know people outside of their programs. And we have several initiatives within the Excellence Academy where our student athletes have a ability to get involved in leadership roles in the department, and that's really a great thing. So I want to continue to try to get to know them better, because that's why we're here, and I love that. In terms of really, what's your second question, Owen?
How do you determine if they're having mental health issues?
Yeah, that is really a big part of our mental health task force, is really working with all of our coaches or anyone who has direct contact with our student athletes, that they are really looking for the telltale signs. And additionally, we do a lot of work just making certain that we take away the stigma of mental health support. That it's no different than if I tore my ACL and I need to rehab from an ACL standpoint, that if someone is struggling mentally, there is no negative stigma with that. We've got resources to help with, and we do a lot with that to make certain that our student athletes know that we have resources to help them, and that's really, really important, Owen.
How are the coaches dealing with this, and how has it affected their recruiting? Obviously, you can make some budget savings because they're not traveling all over the place.
That's true. They've had to adapt big time, and I really commend our coaches, because we have a head coaches meeting once a week on Zoom like this, and those meetings have been all over the place. And what they're trying to do is, for a long time, they were trying to keep our student athletes connected, although they had to be disconnected. Same thing with recruiting, how to connect with recruits even though you can't physically connect. And they've adapted tremendously and done a really great job on the mental side of things, which really became more important than the physical. Recruiting has really changed a lot. You know, recruiting is still shut down. It'll be shut down at least until October 31st right now, and it could go farther. My gut feeling is it will. So all of our coaches, and it's again, being on the cutting edge, our Cuban Center and the ability we have to create video and content has become more important than ever. And so again, we want to be on the cutting edge of, we're dealt these cards, how do we play them the best we can? And so I'm excited about what our coaches have done and how they've adapted to the circumstances we're under right now.
I've been trying to synthesize the questions, but there's one person I can't synthesize, and that's the inimitable Charlotte Zitlow. Charlotte?
Oh, thank you. I have a question. One can't help realize that the athletic salaries are the top salaries in the university, and wonder what we can do about in the financial situation with making that less so disproportionate to the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's a great question, and the reality is that the marketplace, you know, really sets those, and the question is, and it's a great one, is, you know, if we want to be competitive, whether it's with, you can name a sport, whether it's women's basketball is a great example. If we want to be competitive, we have to provide in my view, we have to provide the resources in order to compete, and to provide the resources, we have to hire the appropriate staff. And I've always been a proponent of the dollar amount that you pay doesn't always equate to the right person. It's not like you have to, if it were all about paying the highest amount, then whoever would pay the highest amount would win. It's really the person. But at the same time, to get the person that you want, you have to compete in the marketplace. And will the marketplace adjust due to the challenges everyone is having financially? They might. But in the meantime, we have to continue to try to compete in the marketplace to provide those resources for our student athletes to succeed. And that's the reality of where we are right now. But it's a really great question.
Yeah, it's a question I could have answered the same way, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
One final question, Scott, in this public portion of the meeting. What do you and your fellow athletic directors think when you see a team like Arkansas State on prime time on ESPN?
Yeah, one of the things that, and it's hard for our student athletes, because I wonder a lot what they think. But what I hope they think, and what I know what I think, and I think my fellow athletic directors think, is that we can't speak for any other conference or any other school. All we can do is we know what we know internally, and for us, it's important that we trust our medical experts, that when we say that it's about health and safety first, that we actually mean it, And that doesn't mean that, by me saying that means that the other schools aren't doing that, because I don't know what their experts are telling them. But I just know from our perspective, that's what's important. And so as we see that, it's just something that we just really make certain that we focus on controlling what we can control, and really can't speculate on what other people are doing. We just know what we know.
Thanks very much, Scott.
Sure.
Ashley?
Thank you so much. And Scott will stay for a few moments after the official close of our meeting to address the few questions I see in the chat that still need to be asked. So thank you, Scott. In honor of your presentation today, we will be giving a donation to the Teachers Warehouse. So thank you so much for being here. And I would like to welcome Sally to tell us about next week's meeting.
Thank you, Ashley. We certainly have an unparalleled diversity of programs at Bloomington Rotary every Tuesday. Next week, September 15th, Nichelle Whitney will speak about Girls Coding Week, a program and a partnership.
Thank you so much. Michael, will you share the four-way test graphic so that we can say that together? Of the things we think, say, and do. First,
Is
it
it
the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third,
Will it build goodwill
and better
Fourth,
Fourth, be beneficial.
beneficial to all concerned.
and fifth,
Is
it's
it
fun.
fun?
Thank you so much for being here today. Owen, are you able to pick back up and ask the remaining questions?
Yeah, I'd be happy